Welcome to Dream Pushers. We connect you with Web3's vanguard, creators and entrepreneurs shaping the future. Hosted by Chris Jonu and presented by Draper University.
I want to quickly mention that none of this is investment advice or financial advice, trading advice, or any sort of advice. And we do not recommend any cryptocurrency or investing in any projects. We're just showcasing the stories of founders. Welcome back, Dream Pushers Podcast. This is Chris Jonu. And today we have Ignacio Palomera, CEO and founder at Bondex, that is disrupting talent recruitment in Web3. Closest comparison I can make it would be like LinkedIn. It's got the professional network and the job board bit, but obviously these got the Web3 incentives built in, really well executed. Got great jobs up there, great clients, and he's kicking ass. Definitely worth checking out. His background is BA in finance and international business from University of Georgia. He starts his career in London at HSBC. Working on M&A advisory, then goes on to start Expert Network and AI recruitment company and financing films at Texas Industries. So super interesting guy, super smart. Now obviously 100% immersed in building Bondex and disrupting talent recruitment with Web3. I learned a lot from this interview. I hope you do too. Enjoy. Cheers. Hey, Ignacio, how you doing, my friend?
All good, Chris. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm very excited to chat to you about Bondex today. It's a really cool app, the decentralization of talent and networks. Am I allowed to liken it to then crossed with jobs marketplace for Web 3.0? How am I looking?
That's right. No, you're good. You're good. I like to call it the human bond exchange. That's what Bondex stands for. And the idea, as you said, is decentralizing parts of the recruitment process to democratize hiring. So I think in today's day and age, it's a very middleman heavy aspect. It's controlled by a subset of people in the recruitment industry, which there's only 3.4 million recruiters. They generate about 600 billion in recruitment fees a year. And they're all using this Web2 platforms that exploits people's data, right? From LinkedIn to a recruitment firm to job boards. So we're playing here or trying to disrupt what's called the Internet of Jobs, which is when Web3 clashes with talent acquisition.
Amazing. Now, before I get into the app itself, right, and we're all about talent at Draper U as well, right, and the development of people into heroes is what we say. But can I go back a little bit and a little bit about your journey, just to give the audience a little bit of context as to how you arrived, how you got to what you're working on today?
Absolutely. So I actually started my career out in traditional finance, and I was an investment banker in FIC Group in London, working in financial institutions. And that led me to get into fintech, and that led me to get into crypto. And at first it was a personal investment, like many people going down the rabbit hole. And I was like, well, this is the next internet. I dropped my finance job and went into my first Web3 startup, which was also talent related. And that's when I learned about all the pitfalls of recruitment. We ended up pivoting into artificial intelligence matching between jobs and candidates. And I really learned a lot about basically how inefficient hiring is, how there's all these people extracting way more value than they provide, and how desperate a lot of people are to get jobs and they can't reach it. How desperate companies are to find the right talent, and it's so costly and expensive and inefficient to get them. So I realized that Web3 was the perfect use case for it. And once we started having a better site, this latest bull cycle that there was, and institutional adoption was coming, a lot more professionals were coming into the industry, especially for more traditional industries and great backgrounds. I was like, okay, it's time for a tokenized professional network. And that's when I got my co-founder in. He was just finishing MIT. He's also an ex-finance. He was a Goldman TMT. And that's when we started launching the project, fundraising from friends, and we launched a beta mobile app to see what the demand would be for Web3 LinkedIn.
And it was pretty big.
Yes, essentially, we're TradFi guys, which depending on who you talk to in Web3, they like it or not. But for me, I think it's a good thing. We look for tangible value and traction. And so we wanted to see what would the demand, a paint to door test essentially. And it went very viral. So we've had over 4.5 million downloads of the app today. We have 1.7 million unique active users.
Wow.
So by user numbers, we're the largest Web3 professional network.
Incredible. And what I think you've also got the rise of remote work being even adopted at enterprise level. Biggest corporates aren't going back to work, or they at least got some sort of hybrid model. And then the gig economy, and then the gig economy in Web3. There's also so many waves that you have the ability to ride at the same time, if I'm right.
Well, there's many trends. Now you have also AI and how it might disrupt knowledge work, either decreasing it by price or increasing the amount of work people can do, right? So that's another trend. We're entering what a lot of people consider a recession, and that's actually the last big one, right? Financial crisis. That's the rise of LinkedIn, because people were more willing to find alternative ways to find work. So you have all these secular trends that have accelerated the future of work and how we find talent. But all the talent platforms that we use today haven't really adapted to that change of pace, which would be very difficult. So that leaves them, in my opinion, vulnerable to disruption, right? Because they haven't kept up with all the things that we've discussed.
Can you talk a little bit around the mechanisms you put in place to foster virality, or the referral process, which is a big part of recruitment, right? I might not be the right person, but I might know the right person. How are you rewarding people for and making that work?
That's right. So this is not done yet. What we've done is we've gamified building your professional profile. But the next stage of the company and what we're launching is basically recruitment based on referrals. As I was saying, some numbers are, recruitment's a 600 billion a year industry, but 85% of hiring happens via direct networking and referrals. So they're only capturing 15% of the market and generating this incredible amount of value, or at least extracting it. So we believe that referrals are the golden grail of building any team, your network and network, but it's not scalable. And a lot of companies have amazing referral programs, Google, Amazon, all the big tech giants, all the big investment banks, but they're internal. So you're capping the extension of it. So we want to create a system based on that. So the idea is a company puts a job and then it boosts its reach by creating a bounty and then crowdsourcing referrals from the users. Now, for users to make a referral, though, they have to use their bond points, which they earn on our app, in order to create basically trust in the transaction that it's a good quality referral. When you have something on the line, your reputation on the line, then you're more careful with it. And the idea there is, again, better professional networking, more sustainable, ethical, less noise and less spam. Because what we have today in our traditional social networks is an overload of data. So it's not about more data, more candidates, about the right ones. So people put down their bond points, they make the referral, and then now you have a pool of candidates that company has crowdsourced, right? They'll put a limit to it. Then we do the first filter with our operations and talent team to make sure that we get out the noise. We only present the highest quality of candidates that are very engaged to the company. Then the company ends up passing some to the final stages. Then if they recruit someone, then over 30, 60, 90 days, the escrow will be released, and everyone that participated in the process and the referral process gets rewarded. So everything is gamified. And afterward, the person who made the successful referral gets most of the bounty, which is significant. This will attract professional and freelance recruiters to become independent, and it will also allow everyone to monetize their network, Uberizing headhunting in a way. And it also has recruiter-based ratings, which is something that doesn't exist today, which I think is very much needed.
So can you talk a little bit about the decentralization part? You talked about escrow, and that's escrow of tokens, right? Not US dollars or whatever.
So no, the distribution of the funds happens via smart contract, but the company puts their funds in whatever currency they want, whether it's fiat, not traditional. Where we're decentralizing is the recruitment process, because no longer do you have to go to a centralized party to go and they do the recruitment process. Essentially, what you want to create is a peer-to-peer talent exchange incentivized system versus what you have today with middlemen that charge, again, 20, 30% of someone's salary. And you do that with the bounties and the referrals, essentially.
And the reputation, like you mentioned, right? Because then I trust after a while, I can see the ratings that are not too dissimilar from any other kind of marketplace, which hasn't been done in this space. Super cool. That if Ignacio refers this person, they're going to be great.
Exactly. Reputation is a key part of it. I think that the reason that LinkedIn has the lowest engagement rate out of any social network is its lack of stickiness and incentives for the users and the talent, right? Talent is a supply constrained marketplace, but everyone's focusing on the demand side, the people paying them. We want to disrupt that. We want to focus on the incentives and the experience of the talent. And we believe that will disrupt hiring. It's going to make it much more efficient, and it's going to rely on reputational systems that are more transparent. And that's where blockchain and Web3 can really make an incredible difference. And it's a perfect use case for it.
Absolutely. And it's still early days and you've got lots that you're already building out. But I'm curious as to whether, I think we had this conversation before around blockchain being able to potentially help with fraud that occurs with people. Hey, I worked at Nestle for 5 years as a senior manager, and that helped me get the next job. And it's actually, if it's quite at a senior level and people hire based on kind of beliefs, can cost millions. It's billions, in fact. And then, so the kind of, you did what you said you did, right? That kind of bit. And then also how is probably even super important when you start getting into, hey, I was working for a DAO for 3 months here and I was doing this, and the kind of some sort of blockchain verification that all of that did occur. I'm just curious as to, maybe it's a separate product and I'm taking you down a different direction, but I'm curious. Yeah.
No, it's not that it's a separate product. It's that it's what we're trying to do. It's mobile, it's desktop, and there's a blockchain aspect to it. So there's a lot of things to do. But you hit the nail on the head. It's actually our essentially roadmap 2.0 is on-chain CV disruption to create dynamic professional identities versus what we have today. So you're right. It's a 90 billion a year problem, fake credentials and lacks of skill sets and all the fraud that you have. And it's an even bigger problem now that we're going to a hyper-mobile workforce and remote work. So we need infrastructure, one, that it actually creates enough trust between two parties across the world to trust people that you don't meet in person with complex projects, which it's hard. But number two is a resume is more and more obsolete, especially in Web3, especially with the freelance and fractional work, if that's the direction that we're going in, because static view of everything you've done before is not as useful to me as you showing me how capable of what you're doing and learn, right? But, you need to reskill a skill set. Technology changes at a fast pace. So we need to change the CV towards something that's a dynamic view of someone's professional capability. So you need to include all of the communities they're a part of, all their social footprint, maybe more of a project-based samples that they can show you what they can do. Video, you need to make it much more dynamic. And that's where soul-bound tokens, proof of performance NFTs, actually proving the skill sets that you claim you have with technical assessments and generating badges, those types of things is what we see in the future. And we're excited to build it. But first things first, our first product to go to market will be the crowdsourced and the bounties of referrals. And then afterwards, we'll try to tackle the whole talent infrastructure.
The soulbound tokens is just a kind of a new term that I heard that I've been trying to figure out what it is, because you have this, if I do get this education, because at Draper University, we're looking at similar kind of stuff, right? It's around how do we reward someone that graduates with us or participates in Accelerate an NFT that's non-transferable is super important. So can you just briefly explain the soulbound concept for the audience, just that may not be familiar with?
One thing I love is you had the NFT craze, and then it was all based on most of Web3 adoption has been based on speculation. And then you have the actual technology, and then you come up with applications that I think are actually useful and tangible. And one of them is the soulbound tokens. And that's exactly what you said before about the problem of credentials. That's exactly what it tackles. When you make your LinkedIn or you're making your resume, you're assigning yourself where you worked or where you attended your educational institution. But if your educational institution, instead of handing you a diploma, that's a physical thing that you can't really use anywhere, where you can actually prove that you went to that organization, right, without using a third party that does background checks and actually confirms you went there, which are very expensive and only big employers can afford, right? Then the soulbound token is a perfect solution, because again, it's something that's forever, it's not transferable, and it says, hey, Chris went to Draper University, he attended there, he got X score, all of that stays with you forever. And that will solve exactly the credentialing problem that you were talking about.
And so do you think that like the contracts just become more sophisticated, or we're just embedding data in there that says some of these things that we're claiming in terms of performance? I'm a product manager at this company and my portfolio increased whatever percent. Is that stuff that just gets embedded in the contract as we move forward?
I think over time, once there's more adoption from enterprises, right? And it depends also on there's a lot of protections to employees or whatever data they want to put out there about their performance within a company, right?
Yeah.
So I think the better use cases for when you're a project-based worker and you're hypermobile, how do you keep track of your performance if you're working up all of these DAOs or you're on Upwork or TopTal or you're any of these freelancers? So it's better for them to keep track of how they performed on those projects. How do you track that at scale I think that's where it'll be more complex, as you're saying, but it also in a way makes it much more automated to ask for feedback loops from the employer and the people that are in the project. And then you get your 5-star rating and a little comment. And then it could be basically a big dynamic NFT that your resume has become and your professional identity.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm also thinking that it's perhaps a way to quickly license a brand that allows me to put the logo of Google. And I worked at Nike and I had, I don't know, some sort of official badges of these locations. And sorry, I'm taking you away from kind of core product, but I'm just interested to see where the future's going and what you're thinking. Yeah.
Oh, no, it's exactly right. And that is what we're thinking about. But I think more than there's other things that I would prioritize first in terms of the future of work. And one of them is once you get that better infrastructure, that people can have better CVs, and then smart contracts and escrows are a great way for people to be more accountable to how they perform, and you can transact and exchange labor and time and money across the globe with more complex projects. Because I think today there's a lack of trust, so it means that people have to go to managed service companies, Infosys of the world, Wipro of the world in India, and it doesn't give an opportunity for a lot of people in emerging countries that are very smart and hardworking to access great opportunities, just very simple, minimal task. So I think first you need to improve that talent infrastructure with CVs, and then afterward, payments is the next thing that I think Web3 is a great use case for across the world, and escrows and smart contracts.
Absolutely. And so I'm just trying to think, so does HR get replaced with everyone on the network confirming that you did what you said you did and you're going to get paid and should get paid, or is there still going to be a need for some?
No, I think it doesn't replace HR. I think what we're doing could potentially long-term present a problem for recruitment agencies. And I don't want to disintermediate good recruiters. I want to provide them a way to become independent, right? A recruiter actually provides great value because they don't just find people, they convince someone and sell someone on the opportunity of joining a company. And that's got great commercial value. That's why they charge a lot of money. But when they place someone successfully, which is not easy, they only get 30% max of that fee, right? And 70% goes to the agency. And that's where the misalignment of incentives usually gets created. So if I'm at Bondex, you put 10% of someone's salary, and that goes to that person who referred the right candidate. Absolute value to the person is actually the same that they would at a big agency. So that's who we're disintermediating. The HR people, you'll still need them. I think they'll just be able to get more quality and focus more on the more valuable things that the HR people do, which is, I think, the more internal things, setting the culture, making sure everyone's behaving and everyone's developing and reskilling and upskilling and evolving with the company. And they can spend less time filtering through endless amounts of data and trying to find people and getting ghosted on LinkedIn. That's, I think, it's just going to be a more effective function of the company.
Yeah, sorry, I was further down the track with the HR comment, more around I'm checking that I'm the one issuing you what you did at the company, right? Probably don't want my boss to do that in case there was a dispute or whatever. You still need HR that comes in and makes sure everyone's happy when there's a redundancy or whatever, that they're the person that said, no, you did it, and there's not the disgruntled manager or whatever involved. Anyway, too far down the track. I think the point you made is, go ahead.
Transparency will be increased and accountability will be increased for sure. But I think that's very long-term mass adoption by enterprises of this technology on the HR department.
Yeah. Okay. And then so coming back to what you said, it's really a great point to note for recruiters. And I think you're right. The service is there because it's valuable, because like you said, they become an ambassador for the company. They're also, because they're selling the candidate on why they should choose this job over the other job. There's also the network that they amass that they can now get benefit from your platform. And so this is a way to them just bring their talent to you and get a better deal.
Absolutely. So the Uber analogy is very useful, because in the beginning, Uber was for professional black hat drivers that would then monetize their know-how and skill set, right? So very much like that, we see our alpha users being recruiters because they have the know-how and networks and databases to come and monetize them, right? But eventually, I think there's a lot of people that miss out on monetizing their network because LinkedIn basically does it for you and you don't get it. You get screwed out of the economic equation there. We're both in Web3, right? And you're part of Triple University. How many times have you placed friends at a company or recommended some? And that's a huge amount of value for both parties that you're doing. And maybe you get a dinner a bowl of wine, and that's great. But getting a little bit of reward there, it's actually more than fair without feeling that you're being too salesy or anything. And I think this is a fantastic system to keep track of all of that.
Yeah, again, I think you've got something really fantastic here, and so I've thrown it up for people to download. And for me, coming from doing the BD and partnerships kind of stuff, I'm super interested in this as a use case for sale, because it's another thing that kind of gets lost in the referral. And people talk about it all the time, right? Like, first of all, it's a bit of a pain in the ass to ask someone, hey, if I send you someone, can you reward me? And it shouldn't be, right? Because this is ultimately I'm helping you and you're helping someone else, and that wouldn't have happened without that person. So I get it, but you do it in a non-sleazy way, right? And then you've got the kind of the referral in sales. This is all, to me, easiest deals to close are if they're indirect, right? If somebody else brings it to me, and then that chain can get lost. And sometimes when it's business to business, right? Because those deals, or government is really even a better example, where the deal is going to take 2 years to get done. I had all the intentions of giving you a clip for helping me, Ignacio, but 2 years later, I forget that it was you that introduced me to that person, that it happens. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I don't want to, it's me asking you for a different product again. I'm sorry.
No, so basically affiliate marketing is a very developed Web 2 product that a lot of people use, but the beauty of our professional network and our talent network is that we reward our users for bringing and helping us grow on the demand and the supply side. So just like we have referral links on the supply side and for people making recommendations, we will allow users to bring clients and get a revenue share from wherever they spend on the platform. That's the beauty of it. When you're on LinkedIn and you're a traditional talent platform, you're either the recruiter or the employer trying to recruit, or you're the talent or a freelancer, right? Here you can play multiple roles at once and have upside in the success of the network, right? And that's the promise of Web3, democratize the economics of a network with the users that bring value to it. And that's what we're going to deliver for on both the demand and the supply side.
Ignacio, thank you very much for joining me. Awesome product. Super excited about Bondex. I threw up the QR code. I'll throw it up once more. Check it out. Definitely worth seeing what's out there, being part of this kind of revolution. I don't know.
Talent revolution.
Revolution. And I'm just super interested to see how it evolves too, with once you have all the talent there, and as the roles of Web3, people have these side gigs that they'd love to work on, but there's not enough money in it. But if there's more of them, and you could just jump from passion to passion potentially and be rewarded along the way. And then of course, monetize your network. It's super, super exciting. So yeah, best of luck, my friend.
I appreciate that, Chris.
Thank you for joining Dream Pushers. Inspired. Subscribe and share. With dedication, craft your legacy. Push boundaries.